Hello everyone, I'm Rob the Robot from the Adobe Education team, and I would like to welcome you to the Inject Creativity Live Show. This is an online show for educators interested in digital creativity. This show is live on the Adobe for Education YouTube channel, as well as other social media, and past recordings can be viewed via bit.ly/adobe-inject. Any teacher, whether an Adobe user or not, in any K-12 or higher education sector and any subject area is welcome. Here are your hosts, Dr. Tim Kitchen and Erin Raethke.
Well, thank you very much, Rob, and hello, Erin, and welcome everyone to the Inject Creativity Live Show, and happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody!
Hey! Hi, Tim, and a special welcome to everyone who's joining us live on Wednesday, the 17th of March, 2021, via the Adobe for Education YouTube channel, as well as the Australasian Adobe and Education Facebook group. We encourage you to say hi in the chat and let us know where you are from, where you teach, and what you teach.
And of course, what subject you teach, because we all know that you teach young people, which is a little discussion we had beforehand.
Or older people.
Or older people, that's true, yeah. A special welcome to those who have joined us from this week's ACCE, Australian Council for Computers in Education Conference, which has been running virtually each afternoon this week from 4 p.m. While you're in the chat sharing a bit about yourself, we'd like to do an acknowledgement of country. We respect and honour Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander elders past, present and future, as well as all Indigenous people from the lands we reach out to during this event.
We acknowledge their stories, traditions and living cultures. We acknowledge them as the first peoples in our lands, the first scientists and the first creatives, and we commit to building a brighter future together.
During this episode, Adobe Education leader Juliette Bentley from Brisbane will be with us.
And our education thought leader for this episode is none other than the wonderful Peter Hutton, Director of the Future Schools Alliance.
Before we hear from our guests, let's see who has joined us live for the show so far and has said hi in the chat. We've got some old favourites. John from Toowoomba says hello to everyone. Gary from Wagga is giving us a lovely smile. Elmark from the Philippines says hello, everybody. And Roland also from the Philippines. Hello, everyone. Creative educators around the world. Nice to see Tim, Erin, and Jerry. Trevor Malivsky from far northern Queensland is saying hello to all of us. And Roland's got a special favourite. He's looking forward to Juliet's session. Well done. Thanks, Roland. Please continue in the chat.
So note that we're getting the chat feed from those of you on Facebook, LinkedIn and YouTube, but not always from Twitter. So if you're joining us from Twitter and you'd like your comments, questions and your answer to the coming quiz question posted and published by us during the chat show, you may like to jump out of Twitter and into the Adobe for Education YouTube channel at youtube.com/Adobe for Education.
And we're always very pleased to have Timothy Cosgrove with us. We'll just bring his welcome up from Toronto. Hey, Tim, tell us exactly what the temperature is right now and what time it is in Toronto, just to show how dedicated you are for joining us each and every episode. We're very, very impressed.
Yeah, it's usually something obscenely early and obscenely cold.
Absolutely. Let's welcome our friend and the Inject Creativity Live moderator, Jerry Wong. Hi, Jerry.
Hi everyone, welcome. I will be looking out for your comments and questions in the chat and posting the most relevant ones. To encourage you to use the live chat, I have an Adobe related quiz question for you. Name the popular young female celebrity who has contributed their art designs for the Photoshop camera app.
Oh, there's a good question, Jerry. So we're going to just look at the comments now to see if someone can very quickly. I did a test with our guests today and even with Erin, and everyone struggled. All the middle-aged people that are with us struggled. So I'm wondering.
See, I had the full moment where I could see her face, I could picture her hair, but I could not for the life of me remember her name.
Well, Roland thinks it's Tim Cosgrove. No, he's just saying hello. Oh, Roland, I think. Well, I'll tell you what, John thinks it's Selena Gomez, and no, we haven't got her involved. Someone even more famous at the moment is Billie Eilish. Congratulations, Roland. Round of applause. And again, I didn't get my sound effects organised in time to do that properly, so well done. Oh, Tim's telling us here it is 3:34 a.m., a little more convenient with daylight. Really, temperature is 1 degree Celsius, so it's warming up. Things are improving. Oh, boy. There you go. And John still thinks it's someone else. I mean, Kim Kardashian, really? No. Roland's making an excuse for his spelling of Billie Eilish. Look, we got the idea. You've done.
Hey, at least you got her name, Roland.
Well, congratulations. Well done. Well, let's welcome our two guests for this episode. And Juliet, let's bring her up to the screen if we can, Gary. Juliet, welcome back to the show. For those who haven't met you before, tell us how long you've been an Adobe Education leader and where...
I've probably been an Adobe Education leader for maybe about 4 or 5 years, but I have been playing with Spark since it was in beta. So it used to be called Adobe Slate, and I've been using it since then.
That's a few years ago. So, Juliet, you must be in Brisbane because I can hear those crows in the background.
I'm sorry about that. They
I
love
did
me.
mute myself because I wasn't sure if it was hers or mine.
Yeah, friendly local crows, absolutely. Well, Juliet, also tell us where you're teaching.
I'm teaching at Mount St Michael's, and I teach religion and English. I work particularly with grade 7s up to 12, and focus in transition, but also in applied subjects. So the English, essential English, fundamental English, religion and ethics, as well as the lower grades. So it's rather good. Lots of fun.
Great. Let's bring Peter up to the screen and welcome Peter.
Welcome, Peter. Can you tell us briefly what the Future Schools Alliance is about and your pathway to this venture?
Certainly, Erin. Thank you. Future Schools, as we're now shortening it to, is a global school reform movement. So we do have a community of practice of 70 schools across Australia and New Zealand called the Future Schools Alliance, but we're moving it increasingly to a global school reform movement. Prior to this role, starting 3 years ago, I was principal of a school called Templestowe College, or TC, in Melbourne, Victoria.
Which was a wonderful school, and I had the pleasure of visiting it on 3 occasions, your school. Got it a little bit confused with TC. I don't know if I told you this, Peter, but the Year 9 campus at Strathcona is also called TC, the TAFE. Yeah.
Well, they might like to take some of the credit for TC. Our TC stood for Take Control, which was the model of learning there, where it was beyond student voice, certainly beyond student empowerment, where we actually supported young people to take control of their education.
That was revolutionary, and now it's great to see that you're spreading that message around to 80 plus schools around the country, and we'll be hearing a little bit more about that later. Juliet, what does being an Adobe Education leader mean to you?
Well, I've had the wonderful opportunity to work with some fantastic people, and I've had also the opportunity to learn from so many fantastic people. I've developed a professional learning network, which is quite extensive. I've had the chance to present internationally in terms of looking at how Spark, particularly, because that tends to be the tool I use most, can be used across a range of subjects, but also in global projects. So I've been working with the Asia Europe Foundation and teaching teachers around the world how to use Adobe Spark in the context of the Sustainable Development Goals over the last 2 years, and writing particularly. So I think that the AEL opportunity opened me up to an awful lot of ideas, and it gave me the opportunity to use the Creative Cloud and the Adobe Education Exchange quite literally, and work with better homes, better lessons in the creation of resources that could be used in distance learning. So a lot of different things.
And you'll be sharing a bit of that later, I understand.
Yep.
Now, Peter, can you give us a teaser about what you'll be sharing with us later in the show?
Well, Erin, thank you for that. I rather foolishly called the title of my piece "Putting the Joy Back into Education." And then, of course, when I sat down to write it, I found that there was relatively never any joy in it. So I may need to modify that title on the run.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. And I'm doing the keynote at the ACCC Conference on Friday. And I've got to tell you, Peter, when you last spoke to us on this show, I was so inspired with a lot of the material that you gave. I've reworked a lot of it. And so your messaging is continuing on in all sorts of directions. A lot of the messaging from yourself and from Dan and from Dan Hassler, that is, and Sir Ken Robinson. And I've tied that all up into a keynote on Friday at the ACCE conference. So thank you very much for the work you're doing. And I'm more than pleased to keep spreading the word.
Thanks, Tim.
We are looking forward to hearing from both of you later in this episode. So we'll say goodbye to you now. We'll come back to you a little bit later on. Erin, are you ready for the Spark Challenge?
Well, folks, I hope you're ready for this week's Spark Challenge.
Thanks, Rob. We encourage you to choose one of the 3 free Adobe Spark applications, so that's Spark Post, Spark Page, or Spark Video, to create a simple project that highlights something that you have enjoyed or learned during this episode.
Be prepared to share what you've created after the show at our fireside chat via Blue Jeans. So just take note of the link that's on the ticker at the moment, because we'll be jumping to that link as soon as this show is over. Erin, we do have another special guest with us tonight. Let's bring Michelle up to the screen.
Yeah, that's right, Tim. Last week, Adobe Education leader Michelle Dennis, hi Michelle, was announced as the winner of the inaugural DLTV Digital Learning and Teaching Victoria Women Teachers of Technology Award.
Welcome, Michelle, and congratulations. We're very proud of you. The announcement on the DLTV website said that you have demonstrated a clear ability to promote the engagement of women and girls in technology learning, and how you have dedicated your career to inspiring young women and girls to see themselves in technology industries in the future. For those who haven't met you yet, tell us briefly where you teach, what subjects you teach, and about your passion for teaching technology.
Well, I've just started at Haileybury as head of digital, which has been a fantastic role so far. Lots and lots of different possibilities. At the moment, one of the joys of my job is that I don't get to work with just one class, but I get to walk into almost any classroom and add the power and spark of digital technologies. So that's been a real joy. I went into education because I studied computer science, and when I turned up to the lecture theatre and looked around, I realised that actually I was in the minority, that only about between 17 to 19% of the people in the course were female. And that's a very strange feeling, to feel other. I know that there are other people who are in underrepresented areas who would also have similar feelings. And I looked around and it just wasn't good enough. I mean, this is something that's going to change the way that we think and we work for the future. So I wanted to go back and try and convince more girls to pick up technology, and also to learn how fun it is. It doesn't mean that you're chained to a desk in some dungeon somewhere, writing line after line of matrix-like code. That working with technology is something that's creative and fun and interesting. And powerful. So that's what I've been trying to do for the last 15 years or so of my life.
And you're doing a fantastic job too, Michelle. Michelle, you've recently moved from Strathcona to Haileybury, so you've gone into a massive school. Like Haileybury, I believe, is the largest independent school in the Southern Hemisphere. Now it's got a campus in Darwin, and a campus in China, and several campuses in Melbourne. What's it been like to be moving into such a big school environment?
One of the amazing things has been that there's so many possibilities. So we're trying to do things like take the lessons of COVID and run bimodal classes. So if a student wants to do accelerated Chinese and fit into a subject area that normally wouldn't be at their campus, they're actually joining in with a teacher in a different campus across Melbourne and sitting in that class remotely. So a big school offers lots of possibilities for creative thinking. And what I hope to do is, by trialing those things in a school like Haileybury, hopefully we can put forward some ideas that might influence and change other schools. So maybe we can be the trial school for some different ways of using technology and share our lessons with the rest of Australia or the world.
Good on you, Michelle. Well, we're looking forward to seeing your progress over the years. And of course, you're an Adobe education leader, so you're part of our community. You're one of our leaders. And we're actually looking forward to having you as our thought leader in the next episode of Inject Creativity Live. So we're going to see you again in a couple of weeks.
I'll see you then. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle, for joining us.
So this week, DLTV have been hosting the ACCE, that's the Australian Council for Computers and Education Conference. How's that been going?
Well, Erin, I was there for the whole session yesterday. In fact, I presented a character animator session yesterday, which was pre-recorded. It had to be pre-recorded because it involved a few digital puppets. And it was quite a lot of fun, actually, having 3 puppets and interacting with them during the presentation. So that was good, using character animator to actually do the presentation. And today I listened in to a number of fantastic presentations about working with students with disabilities. That was the main focus for today. It's been a great event, actually. We had about 80 people thereabouts yesterday. I'm not sure on today. I'm very fortunate to be keynoting on Friday, but it's a unique idea to be running the conference every afternoon throughout the whole week, and a slightly different theme for each day. So I'm fortunate to be the keynote on Friday to help them finish off the conference, and then to do a Spark workshop just to get everyone excited about some of the Adobe tools. So all the best. And hopefully we've got lots of people from the ACCE conference either watching this live or watching the recording soon after. Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of exciting things, Erin, on the holidays, this is a special message to those in the Victorian Department of Education and Training and the New South Wales Department of Education. During the coming Easter holiday break, I'm running a 2.5-day Premiere Pro workshop, an intensive session for DET and DOE teachers and students from years 9 and up. And it's called the Adobe Holiday Video Challenge.
So this is the event that's going to run on Monday, the 12th of April, Wednesday, the 14th of April, and the showcase for the competition will be on Friday afternoon of the 16th of April.
We'll be covering a wide range of video production and editing techniques throughout the 2-day workshop.
So the competition side of the event involves students sharing a 1-minute video that they've made during the week. So student prizes include an iPad Air and Apple Pencil, a DJI Pocket Gimbal and camera, a smartphone gimbal, as well as subscriptions to Adobe Stock.
And you can find out more if you're a DET teacher or a DOE teacher in Victoria or New South Wales from bit.ly/adobe-video-workshop-21. It is a delight to welcome Juliet, but before we do, we need to introduce the AEL segment.
Hi folks, we are about to be inspired by an AEL, an Adobe Education Leader. AELs are passionate about the use of Adobe tools to inspire creative learning and teaching experiences in the delivery of either primary, secondary, or post-secondary curricula. The first step to becoming an AEL is to be an ACE, an Adobe Creative Educator, via edx.adobe.com/adobe-creative-educator. You don't have to be an Adobe expert to be an ACE, just a teacher interested in engaging students through creative digital learning experiences. The ACE program is a free international micro-credentialing program. It only takes a few hours to earn your level 1 badge, and the focus is on creativity rather than Adobe. Please share this program with your colleagues and get involved. Who knows, you may one day also become an Adobe education leader.
It is a great delight to welcome Juliette Bentley back to this show.
Thank you.
Yes. Welcome, Juliet. You've been an education leader with Adobe for a number of years, or should I say an Adobe education leader for a number of years. And last year she became the Adobe Master Teacher for the APAC region.
Yes, that's right. And she is a highly respected teacher, mentor, and presenter, writer, and innovation advocate at Mount St Michael's College, Brisbane. And Juliet, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Tim. Rather than take people through a workshop for Adobe Spark, the reality is we have lots of those and they're much better at it than I am. But what I want to look at is how we can use Adobe Spark in tech study particularly, and also to support students, for example, in across all the subjects really, because literacy is something that should be taught across the curriculum. But I want to show you how I've been using the Adobe Spark tools. That they tend to be my go-tos. And I would have to say I like using the apps for the creation of resources. And then I use the browser for the curation of those resources. But I'm going to take you to the one of the pages I've created recently, which was to look at analyzing text. Now, I use them both as teacher resources to share the information, but by showing my students how to use these different texts, thinking about design and visual literacy as much as the content, I also give the students opportunities to work with those products as well. And one of the things I love about using Adobe Spark is that it ties in and connects to Microsoft Teams and Google Classroom. It can allow you to embed the different results, the artifacts, into websites. It can be emailed because it gives you a link. And even better, the link doesn't change. So when you change anything on the page and you update the link, you don't get a new address. So everything remains consistent, which is, I've got to say, quite fantastic. And it has so many opportunities to be used external to the classroom as well. So in this context, analyzing a text, we do that across a lot of different subjects. And if you were in business, you'd be looking at business text as well. But I'm using this one as an example just to have you consider the different types of texts and how we understand them. So I'm using here a Adobe Spark page, and I use this particular thing is called a glide, and it allows you to have an interesting visual. It looks professional, it provides the material for the students, and it gives them an opportunity to reiterate and go back to the work that's been provided in class in a way that may be more engaging than a worksheet. The other thing is, of course, that I give them opportunities to engage with materials and look at questions, answer questions, direct them, and also go into each of the ideas of representations. Because the thing about Adobe Spark that I particularly like, and this can be used across the video, the Spark page, and the post, is that it gives students the opportunity to position their audience, and by showing our students how we are positioning them, analyzing texts in a way that makes them more critical viewers, means that they can then apply those skills in their own contexts. And with all of the work I do, I, as I said, give them directions, but with Adobe Spark page, it allows me to embed videos as well. Perhaps one of the nicest things about using Page in this way is that you are able to provide challenges, you can embed buttons, and you can also note at the bottom that credit is given to the artists who've created the photographs, and when we use videos, etc., it gives the music as well as the images that have been used. Now, this was just one that I created to go toward the Essential English Common Assessment item that's coming out at the moment. And teachers can find all of the resources in the Education Exchange, which I'll show you shortly. Another way of using it, rather than having it as an analytical piece, is to get students to create their own, creating one as a model for them. So Marcus Zusak wrote a fantastic book, The Book Thief, by obviously Marcus Zusak. And I wanted to look at location and setting. And the page gave me the opportunity to embed videos so that I could show something that would be quite evocative to them. But by using glides, I was also able to bring in photographs that would tie into the text and to get students to consider archival images. Because obviously a visual text is very powerful, and giving them the opportunity to engage this way, to maybe consider what it would be like to living in this environment, meant that they were going to hopefully find responses in them that they might not otherwise have found. The other thing that web pages do, the Spark page allows me to do, is to add buttons. And my students do the same thing when they create their work. I will show you some student work shortly. But the Google Earth project that I included in here ties beautifully. As I said, it ties to the Google Classroom. But Google Earth allows me to create projects. And for people engaging in literacy, engaging with texts, the settings of texts, particularly when they are easily locatable, they're not a fantastic location, means that we're in a position to explore other curriculum areas. Students need to know where these places are. So I was able to show in The Book Thief students where things were in Germany. And it allows also for you to engage in adding videos and pictures. So the way that it ties in is very practical. I won't keep going on that because that is obviously Google Earth, but it embeds beautifully. And so it gives the teacher and the student an opportunity to look at how these tools can combine to build and leverage knowledge. The web page, continues. It gives the opportunity to add an extension opportunity for students to create their own narrated video explaining the importance of location and setting. This was aimed at grade 7 students, and they get to change and share it with the class. So I showed them a web page. They then create one. Obviously, I will show them how to create the page, but it doesn't take very much, and most of them are actually pretty good at doing it themselves. Another way of using Adobe Spark, though, is that you can embed your own Adobe Spark videos. So this one, the web page is actually looking at being where we are, the idea of creating an anthology of poetry and explaining it. So my students would use this as a template and create their own. I gave them tasks within it, so we could look at the role that poetry is played in capturing cultures and creeds. They could use images to support it. They could insert a narrative poem. So I would give them directions as to what I would like in that poetry anthology, but what they do is up to them. I've given them a context. I've given them an example. And so, for example, they could listen to McCavity. The other wonderful thing about working with Adobe Spark Video is it does allow you to put music underneath. It allows you to add your own pictures as well as the free pictures, which means that there is no copyright infringement. And again, we're teaching our students to be creators. The other thing about doing this I particularly like is that the students get to develop their oral skills without actually paying attention to them, because as far as they're concerned, they're making an anthology. The other benefit is that because it has such a professional look, they particularly like being able to share it. So they have an authentic audience. And it makes them more cautious and more careful about what they type and doing things like spell checks. But the video, for example, of McCavity, you can see how it You may not be able to hear it, actually. It just occurred to me. But you could hear me. Oh, there we are.
Mystery cat. He's called the Hidden Paw. For he's the master criminal who can defy the law. He's the battlement at Scotland Yard, the flying squad's despair.
So I can demonstrate something to my students, and they can have the fun of creating their own. So they would go on to create their own anthology, and also at the end of the video examples I've given them, I give them questions to reflect on. At the end, they can look at different sorts of biographical poems. They can consider who people are to them. So in terms of using Spark, you're doing more than just creating something that could be done on a PowerPoint. You're actually giving students the opportunity to curate something and create a professional looking tool. But the other thing also is that you can add PDF worksheets by using buttons. So Adobe Acrobat allows you, gives you a share link. You can put that into the button, and that makes it quite useful for a teacher. And the other thing with Adobe documents are that, of course, they can send them back to you completed, which is rather useful. Moving on, I think I had something at the end of that, which was another challenge. I like putting challenges in because what it does is allow people to, if they want to go further, if they want to do more, they have that choice. And it really is challenge by choice when it comes to extending people. This was a choice board that, again, was a PDF. It has all the hyperlinks in and is easily accessible. You'll find this in the Adobe Education Exchange. And the worksheets are there, and challenge by choice. Write and perform a slam poem like the 12-year-old Australian slam poet winner, Solly. And you can see the work in the choice board. So everything is integrated really nicely. Going past that, then I created a reading journal. Again, providing a template. I'm not going to play it, but what I might just do is move you through some of the pages so that you can see how by using the Adobe Spark video, students can narrate, they can work, they can develop their understanding, and they can create something that they add to over a period of time. Now, in this situation, you can see I've used Adobe Spark Post to explore some of the themes. And that can be a very short end of lesson 10-minute activity just to ensure that you understand where the students are when it comes to identifying themes and considering the images that might go along with those, because obviously the two go together. Again, this is in the Adobe Education Exchange. And in the journal, it gives you the opportunity to play with cartoons, and you could do that using a range of different products, as well as Adobe products. I tended to use make-believe comics in this particular activity, and book snaps. So the journal is another way that you can use Spark to create text study activities that are a little bit more creative and allow a little bit more choice. Looking into the Adobe Education Exchange, you'll see that you're given the whole lesson, including all of the resources hyperlinked. It gives you guides. It gives you the opportunity to look at a rubric or use the rubric, and it gives you images that takes you through every step so that you know what to do with your students, and your students have those directions as well. This was one on speculative fiction. I did some work with Better Lessons last year as an Adobe Master Teacher, and it was amazing to see just how versatile the tools could be. If you look up Juliette Bentley on Adobe Education Exchange, you'll find there are quite a few lessons, and including mindfulness activities, which are videos, and religion activities as well. Khan Academy also with Pixar contributed to this project, which was fantastic. But the last thing I want to show you is what it is for other people using it outside of the classroom, because it's not just about tech study. You can use it across all different subjects, but you can also use it in the co-curricular arena. And this was, I'm just going to show a short part of this for you. It doesn't go for very long.
My environment group students wanted to make some posters to inform our student body about different things that they could do. So I was recommended to try using Adobe Spark to make the posters. So I had a quick play around with it. I'd never heard of it before. A quick trial the night before our environment group meeting and found it really straightforward. I was able to make something that I was happy with in a relatively short space of time, which was quite important because our environment group meetings happen at lunchtime. So we only had 20 minutes to try and make these posters. So then in our meeting the next day, we had a group of students from grade 7 to grade 12. Some of them had used it before and others were like me and were new. But they all found it really straightforward, quite intuitive. I didn't give them any instructions on how to use it other than look at Adobe Spark and make a poster, please. And they came up with some great results.
And you're thinking about making a video too now, aren't you?
Yes, so we're going to try and make a little video on the projects that we've done across the last 2 years.
That'll be fantastic. Well, thank you very much for that.
No
Take care.
problem.
Bye.
So that was a teacher who hasn't used the products before, and these were the posters we had before they used Adobe Spark. Then they became more professional looking, and they were far prouder about putting them up around the classroom and around the school. And they've started to do some incredible work. So the students are using the tools in lots of different ways. The teachers are also using them that way too. I tend to use Adobe Spark as a conversation starter at the beginning of a lesson. My students use it also in the same way, and they also use it as a gratitude activity as well. These are just some examples of how I've been using Adobe Spark recently. That was the image you saw earlier. And the other thing I wanted to show you was an example of student advocacy, grade 7 students participating in a bigger project called Days for Girls, which you may have heard of. They learn not only about the visual literacy and the persuasive techniques, but really the importance and the power of caring and advocating and taking some responsibility, because we are global citizens. We have to help. And we have sustainable development goals that we're meant to be meeting by 2030. And we need to make sure that everybody's on board to make it possible. So teaching young people how to be advocates is really important, and giving them power with tools, such as quick tools that don't take too much time in terms of design, but which are very good at communicating, is absolutely key. So these were grade 7 students, and that was it. I did actually plan to show you one other thing. There it is there. This is a student page by grade 7s. I showed them very briefly how to put it together, and it was about the initiative Days for Girls. It's all about menstruation and making sure that this taboo subject stops being taboo and gets the support it needs, particularly in areas where there is poverty. So turning periods into pathways. This is a student making choices, giving the facts, making the glide. These are 11 and 12-year-olds. They made a video too, which I'm not going to show you, but they talked about what it meant for them, made links to the pages, made videos, and then made some reflective comments about what they learned about being in Australia, being advocates, and being responsible for making a difference in the world. So generally speaking, I think we are in an incredibly lucky place. We have students who are wanting to learn. We have teachers who want to teach, but who want to engage and give students digital literacy skills, because they're going to need it. And these tools, the Adobe Spark tools particularly, are ones that can be used across the spectrum of school, but also life. Invitations, reflections, journals. And it's amazing how many of them have actually made videos for their families, for birthdays, etc. So hopefully you've got some ideas of how Spark can be used in terms of literacy, and do go to the Education Exchange, because the Education Exchange has an awful lot of resources and created across the gamut from, I think, grade 3 all the way through to higher education. I think that the other thing about the apps, using the apps on your telephone or a device other than your laptop, is that you get animations, you get stickers that are wonderful. And there have been a lot more images put into Adobe Spark recently, and particularly into the stickers and the icons. I think that's probably as much. Oh, the other thing was, with Adobe Spark, you can have students collaborate. So there is actually a plus button now. You can have students collaborate, and you can duplicate projects. So you could keep your master and then have one to share with your students for collaboration. So hopefully you have some ideas there, and it provides opportunities to give students an authentic audience and some power over what they're doing, the people they're reaching, and teachers products that are much nicer to mark because they look much better and they're legible.
Juliet, thank you so much for your preparation you put into that. Very inspiring work, and lots of comments that were coming through. And Juliet, I'll get you to stay around for the fireside chat, because there'll be people who want to ask you some deeper questions about what you've just presented. And if you wouldn't mind having some of those key links available to bring into the fireside chat, or even while Peter's presenting to throw them into the chat here. So the Education Exchange, the work you did with Better Lessons, the well, basically everything else that you presented, just throw in some key links. Erin, any thoughts before we say goodbye to Juliet?
Oh, I'm fabulously grateful and was furiously trying to take notes while listening to you, Juliet. It's wonderful as always.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Juliet. And we'll say goodbye to you, and we'll see you again at the fireside chat. All right, Erin, can you tell us about the new Get to Know Your Adobe Apps webinar series?
Sure thing, Tim. Led by the Adobe education leaders and Adobe solution consultants, the Get to Know Your Adobe Apps webinar series is a great way to be introduced to a range of Adobe applications in education.
There are 3 categories, one aimed for teachers of years 4 to 9, one for senior secondary educators,
and one for post-secondary or higher education educators like me.
Session 1 was all about a short overview of a number of Adobe applications, including Spark. The recordings are now all available for all 3 categories via bit.ly/Adobe-webinars21.
Session 2 commenced this week for years 4 to 9 teachers with a focus on Character Animator, Photoshop, and Acrobat.
Share these sessions with your colleagues and your wider education networks. Macquarie University, Venture Cafe Sydney and Adobe are collaborating on a special project to create the world's longest digital mural to help celebrate Earth Day on April 22.
This project needs the help of you and your students, as well as the use of the wonderful free Adobe Fresco drawing and painting app. Tim, did you want to play the video?
I don't think we will, because we are running a little bit over time. So we're going to probably play the video during the fireside chat as a bit of an inspiration for people then, especially if we get Dr. Bronwyn Wade Leewin with us, who's managing this particular session, and she can have a chat about it during the fireside chat.
Sounds good.
All right, folks, it is now time for our thought leader, but let's get the intro ready first.
Hi, folks. Well, it's now time to welcome our education thought leader for their 5-minute gem to inspire us and make us think more deeply about the importance of our role as educators.
And our thought leader for this episode of Inject Creativity Live is Peter Hutton.
Hooray! Peter's a former school principal at Templestowe College in Melbourne, and he's now the director of Future Schools Alliance. Over to you.
Thanks, guys. Loving the opportunity to talk with you, and if you're available for the fireside chat, I'd love the opportunity to talk with you, answer any questions, ask some questions of you. I start off with this statistic that essentially in education, at any one time, we've got 40% of our young people who are unproductive or disengaged in any one year, and I am going to start that presentation. I I naively, when Tim asked me for a topic for tonight's provocation, I said putting the joy back into education. And then, of course, I thought that was a great topic, and then started thinking about it. And then I was actually caught in a quandary. When was there joy in education? And I won't, necessarily labor on about how we ended up in this space, but education was never designed to be a joyous experience. That's not to say that we don't find joy, but I would say it's sporadic and not evenly distributed across student experience. I do want to show you some examples. I call them bright lights in a dark sky. This school, and I'll put up the details of which school it is at the end of this presentation. This is Currumbina. It's just called Currumbina. It's not called Currumbina School or any of those sorts of things. This is Currumbina. And if you want to visit a place where joy is in abundance, this is my go-to in Australia. If you indeed know of places that would rival this for joy, please let me know, because we scout the world in Future Schools. The Future Schools is a global school reform movement. We scour the world looking for joyful examples of education around the world, and things that are really, making a difference, resetting the paradigm. This is in Lane Cove in New South Wales. These guys make use of every square metre of space. Juliana, who is the person on the image on the left-hand side, and together with David Runn, she's the co-founder of Future Schools Alliance. You'll notice the large stainless steel slide behind them. This is actually coming off the top of a classroom. So it was imported from Germany, meets all the occupational health and safety requirements, but why not have a slide in school? In fact, we are working with a school, or we have been working with the school in Queensland. The school is indeed cut in at 3 levels into the side of a mountain. And one of our first observations was, why not have a slide? And they thought that was a great idea for students. But indeed, the staff said, hang on, this looks like a little bit too much fun. Why can't we use the slide as well? And of course they can. You'll see these are some of the aerial constructions. Young people love height, and the students were given the option. We've got the money to either renovate the art room, and it's not a great, it's a fantastic art room, but it doesn't look neat and it's not modern or any of those sorts of things. The students, because it is a democratic school, were given the option, do we want to renovate the art room, or do you have any other uses for that money? And they actually decided that they wanted to build an aerial playground so that when you entered the property, be it student, young person or older person, you didn't actually have to touch the ground from the moment you entered through the school gate. You could actually move through the space in the air, and the students working with builders, etc., came up with this sort of environment. There are many, many multi-level tree houses. Probably the situation of most joy that I saw on my recent visit there, which was only last week, was a young girl. She would have been only about 5 years old, and I was just sitting quietly watching her pick up essentially a lunchbox full of sand and slowly tip it over her head. And can I say that the unabashed pleasure of the sand as it ran over her head while a teacher watched on and made observations. In any other or most other schools, teacher would have intervened and said, don't be so silly. Instead, in this school, it was encouraged, it was noted, but this kid was totally joyful in her learning. The last school that I'll leave you with is my best go-to school around the world. It's called AGRA, A-G-O-R-A. It's in the Netherlands. This is the school that I would, if I could send my young person anywhere in the world, this would be it. I encourage you to look this up. Rob Hooben is the principal. If you look up on YouTube, Rob Hooben, AGORA, A-G-O-R-A, they only have 2 half-hour program sessions per day. The first half an hour meeting in a group of 15 multi-age students with their coach, and 30 minutes quiet time after lunch. The rest of the time, the students actually work in self-directed challenges, working sometimes individually, sometimes in teams. This is the most unbelievable school in the world. And pleased to say that Future Schools Alliance is working with this school as an innovation partner. This is all research based, folks. This is not just, let's have fun. The reality is, you look at Michael Fullan's research, tight compliance does not breed a great educational system or great educational outcomes. So many of our states around Australia have got this wrong. And I would reference the work of friend of the Future Schools Alliance, Pasi Solberg, co-written with William Doyle. There is more evidence for the benefit of play over things like homework or strict standards or rigor mortis, as we like to call it in the Future Schools Alliance. If you want young people to actually learn, to love learning, to develop the 21st century skills, basically most schools have got it wrong. We're heading in the wrong direction. It's evidence-based. This is not just my opinion. Read this book and you'll be blown away, but you'll also be put on the right direction, because this indeed is the future of education. I think that's my 5-minute rant. Love to talk to you in the fireside chat if you've got the time to join us.
Thank you so much. I'll just bring you onto the main stage there so we can see you nice and clearly. Always inspired by your words and your wisdom and your research and your practical examples of going into schools that are making a difference. So really appreciate your time today, Peter. This is the first of a series of 3 sessions that Pete's going to be presenting to us throughout this year. So we're really looking forward to the next one later in the year. Thanks again, mate.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Erin.
All right, let's go back into finishing off this particular episode here. And do you know what, Erin? We actually have 17,000 teachers now who have enrolled in level 1 of the Adobe Creative Educator program.
That is fantastic.
Please promote this program with your colleagues via edx.adobe.com/Adobe-creative-educator. The focus is not on Adobe skills, but on understanding the importance of creativity in education. Much of what Peter was sharing is presented the theory and the research within doing the level 1 course. Do the course, it's fantastic.
And in that vein, Dr. Kitchen is running a Be a Creative Educator course on April 13 during school holidays at 11 a.m. for anyone who'd like to be guided through the level 1 course. So since it's April 13, that's Australian Eastern Standard Time. Daylight savings is over, correct, Tim? I think so. So he's already recently announced another date for this course on Monday, the 24th of May at 4 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time.
Looking forward to seeing you there if you want to be guided through that particular course. If you're on Facebook and you're not already a member of the Australasian Adobe Education Community Facebook group, please join via facebook.com/groups/AUSAEL.
This is a great way to keep regularly involved with Adobe and education and the wider community.
And I'm very much looking forward to our next Inject Creativity Live event, which will happen on Wednesday, the 31st of March at 6:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time.
It's so hard to keep track at this point of the year. So our AEL presenter will be the delightful Adrian Brook from SAE in Melbourne, who'll be sharing some tips on Adobe Acrobat.
And as we mentioned earlier, we'll be welcoming back Michelle Dennis as our thought leader for that episode.
For those watching the recording of this episode, join us live if you can in the future. It's always much more fun and interactive when you are live. And for those of you who are live with us, get ready to move to bluejeans.com/kitchen.adobe for our fireside chat, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks.
Well, folks, thank you so much for watching this episode of Inject Creativity Live. For those who are watching live, join us via bluejeans.com/kitchen.adobe for an informal, non-recorded fireside chat to meet and interact with our presenters, as well as complete the feedback form and apply for a professional development certificate. If you are not watching this live, join us live next time. Use this QR code or link to find out more about dates and topics. On behalf of Dr. Kitchen and Erin Raethke, don't forget to keep being creative.